Kim Petras is one of pop music's most controversial figures. She's had many brief moments of success throughout her career, but never the level of international recognition she so clearly craves. This is a result of confused promotional strategies, overlapping eras, moving between publishers and labels, and ever-changing artistic visions, which have resulted in her fans and haters alike asking, who actually is Kim Petras? All of this boils down to behind-the-scenes industry drama that actually makes Kim Petras a prime example of how the music industry chews people up and spits them out. As one of her most devoted fans, or maybe even stans since the very beginning, I'm here today to give you a complete career history of Kim Petras, including a deep dive into the Kesha, Dr. Luke allegations that associate with Kim Petras and explaining her legal position, plus how it connects to the withholding of her next album Detour, as she has recently publicly requested to be released from her contract under Republic Records. The answers here are not black and white, and Kim's morality, much like all of us in the real world, does live in the grey area, and the internet does not like the grey area. So before we get into it, please, I ask you to be kind, thoughtful, and measured in your responses, and actually listen to all of this information before judging me or Kim or anyone involved. It is so much more complicated than we have actually discussed before. And not to be dramatic, but I think I could be the first person to kind of compile all of this evidence in one go in such a way, because there is far more depth to it than the internet has gotten a hold of previously. It's wild, we need to discuss, just be kind. Trigger warning for SA discussions, homophobia and transphobia. Please don't put yourself through this video if these things upset you, because we do have to get into the nitty-gritty of things like Kesha's court case against Dr. Luke and the abuse of Kim Petras as a trans woman in the music industry. First of all, I don't think I can tell you all of this without giving you my Kim Petras related credentials. I have been a devoted Kim stan since around 2018, 2019. I got into her around the Clarity era. I'm also a songwriter myself, which gives me quite a deep understanding of the industry, working as an independent artist for the past 10 years. Side note, go listen to Danica Bryant on Spotify, on Apple Music, on YouTube, wherever you listen to your tunes. That's me. And I make kind of banging music, and a lot of it is inspired by Kim's ultra pop sound. Love. But also the most relevant credentials maybe is that in 2022 to 2023, I spent a lot of time making TikTok video essays, and I made multiple essays theorizing with the limited proof we had at the time on Kim's label situation and her stance on the Dr. Luke matters, and Kim actually liked both of those TikToks and followed me on TikTok as a result, which even at the time I took as a testimony to the fact that my theories were probably right and she just couldn't say much at the time. But she's been way more vocal now, so we have so much more to talk about. I've also found stuff that other people didn't seem to know about yet, I've got evidence, okay? I've got the tea. So let's get into it. Kim Petras. This story is excessively long, but I cannot make it any more concise because it needs to be told genuinely chronologically with every little detail, because every detail matters, starting from Kim's early life. Kim was born in Germany in 1992 to a family with a mother, a father, and two sisters all in her life. Although Kim was assigned male at birth, she identified as a woman to her family as early as age 2 and actually began hormone therapy at age 12. Throughout her teens, she then began publicly campaigning to be the youngest sex change operation in the world by appearing on international news shows like The Morning, Stern TV, and CBS. Her personal life and body was excessively discussed, and when she did succeed to getting the youngest sex change operation at age 16 in February 2009, she was subject to extreme criticism and hailed as the youngest trans person in the world. Kim told The Telegraph in 2009, "I had to wait until my 16th birthday, but once that was passed, I was able legally to have the operation. I know that because of my past, people will always bring up the subject. I can't get away from it, but I hope that one day I might be better known for something else, like my music." Kim went on to study fashion design and pursue modeling during her teens, and then she began a YouTube channel around 2010 where she posted covers and vlogs of her life. Through her social media presence and budding independent music posting, she began connecting with other independent creators online and started writing to track for producers whilst she was living in Germany. This led to the release of her first EP, One Piece of Tape, which is no longer legally accessible online. One Piece of Tape was released on Amazon and iTunes on March 11th, 2011, featuring 4 songs all recorded in Germany. There is very murky information about the producers, writers, and even the lyrics. We don't even know some of the things she's saying for certain. As the songs were removed from her online catalogue a few years later, she basically erased this from the minds of the public and the story of her career. But I do think it's still relevant because it shows Kim has been really hustling from a very young age to be a musician, despite the fact that her first claim to fame was something much more personal and publicly controversial. The big life change for Kim came in 2012 when she was 19 years old and she moved to Los Angeles to begin working as an independent songwriter. Something I really want to highlight about this time in her life is that she was extremely young, just a legal adult, and she was technically homeless for a good portion of this year. She surfed producer couches and just stayed with people she met. She had absolutely no money and has repeatedly said that she was broke. And she was also learning English as her second language, which I think is something people really don't account for now because she's largely lost her German accent. People actually underestimate how difficult this must have been for her as such a young person, moving to a different country and not only having to adjust to their cultural customs, but also learning a completely different method of communication, especially when English is notoriously one of the hardest languages to learn in the world. Kim described this time in her life to People magazine in 2023, saying, "I came here by myself, had around 500 euros, and stayed illegally for 2 years before getting a visa." Like, that's another thing to highlight. She wasn't even here legally, so this is important because when we come to judging her actions in the future, we need to remember the uncomfortable position she was in as a minority, facing literal homelessness, completely broke, struggling with the communication barrier, and also not even supposed to be here under the law, constantly afraid of being caught. So this brings us to around 2012-2013, where we have to pivot to talking about some other people. Introducing Dr. Luke, often known by pop music fans as Dr. Puke. If you think you haven't heard of Dr. Luke, you are completely wrong, because he is an extremely successful pop producer, probably one of the all-time greats, unfortunately. He was particularly successful in the late 2000s and early 2010s, working on albums like Teenage Dream by Katy Perry, Circus by Britney Spears, and huge hit singles like Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA, Kelly Clarkson's Since You've Been Gone, Jessie J's Price Tag, and literally every single Kesha hit ever. And of course, Kesha is a very relevant name in this discussion, because Kesha was one of Dr. Luke's most famous artistic disciples. After signing to him in the late 2000s, she famously filed a case against Dr. Luke in October 2014, suing him for sexual assault and battery, sexual harassment, gender violence, emotional abuse, violation of California business practices over their 10 years of working together, and also accusing him of drugging her, having sex with her with and without consent, and abuse causing her eating disorder. That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's also way more than people talk about. A lot of people will reduce this case to just the SA. But he basically went against every single rule of a professional relationship you should ever have, or just simply the way you should treat a human being. Kesha was horrifically abused by this man. So despite the fact that their working relationship benefited her career by allowing her to take off publicly through his production, and also people speculate his artistic ideas for her image, none of that shit was worth it, because that is awful. That is disgusting. And I want to be very, very clear right now. I'm against that. There's no way in hell I would ever think that that is okay or that we should support this man. This man is evil. Straight up evil, and I believe victims. And I believe Kesha, wholeheartedly. However, after Kesha asked the court to break her contract with Dr. Luke in 2014, Luke denied all of the claims against him and stated that Kesha and her mother made all of it up to break their contract with him against his will. In 2016, the court denied Kesha's request to release her from the contract, meaning that the legal conflict between Dr. Luke and Kesha continued until they reached a private settlement in 2023, officially freeing Kesha from Luke's label. What I'm going to emphasize here is that the timeline is the case went public in October 2014. Please remember that. I'm begging you to remember that. This takes us back to Kim Petras' world around 2013, where she's just started living in LA, just starting to find her footing, and she meets Aaron Joseph. Aaron Joseph is a producer who has been Kim's on and off best friend and also repeated rumoured romantic interest right throughout her career since meeting in 2013. Aaron was also one of Dr. Luke's disciples learning to produce. He met Kim at a party and they started making music with her around this time. Aaron described their first meeting to Paper magazine in 2019, saying, "I met Kim at a Halloween party 4 or 5 years ago with some mutual friends, and someone had just told her I was like a total shitty guy or something. I actually used to work with him, long story. So she was not very friendly to me when I first met her and flipped her hair." Nonetheless, they did end up becoming friends. The law on Aaron at this time was that he was signed to Dr. Luke's publishing company, Prescription Songs. And that means we need to talk about the meaning of publishing companies because so few people understand it, and they'll talk on this situation without having any idea what that means. Publishing companies deal with the mechanical royalties that songs generate. To break it down as simply as I can, every song that is released into the world has both a mechanical side and a performance side, which both generate royalties. The performance side covers the actual specific recordings of a song. For instance, the version you hear on Spotify, that's a master. Somebody owns the master and makes money off the master. But the mechanical royalties are a separate income stream. Mechanical royalties deal with the rights of the songwriters who actually created the song, regardless of who performs it or releases it or owns it. Publishing companies dealing with the mechanical side of things mean that they typically sign on songwriters rather than artists. Most artists end up being songwriters anyway, but there are plenty of songwriters who are just that, songwriters. They only exist to be in the writer's room, they're not releasing their own material. Also less relevant, but just for a fun fact, publishing companies also typically deal with sync in media, which means placing songs in movies, ads, things like that. As a songwriter myself, I do have a publishing company I'm signed to, so I have some insight into this world. Aaron Joseph had been signed to Dr. Luke's publishing company, Prescription Songs, since around 2013, although there's no actual public record of when the contract was signed. We know that Aaron had been emailing his production demos to Luke from 2011 onwards, which is how they met. And the earliest song Aaron Joseph is credited for under Prescription Songs is the song Everything Breaks by Sophia Black, which was released on the Smurfs 2 soundtrack in 2013. So we're assuming, based on that, that's when the signing happened. So now that Aaron and Luke have developed this partnership, Aaron began pitching his songs with Kim after they met to Prescription. Kim would then soon sign as a songwriter to Prescription Records herself. However, again, there's no official date of this happening, but again, we can use song credits as evidence to when that would have. Kim's earliest Prescription Songs credit is 2013's Dancing, an unreleased song which was written for Fergie's The Double Duchess album and has leaked. This would suggest that Kim also signed to Prescription Songs as a songwriter around 2013, writing for and with other artists as a paid, hired songwriter. When The Guardian asked about this Fergie song Dancing in 2022, Kim said, "It helped me get signed on a publishing deal in 2014 with BMG. It allowed me to get my visa and be in the US legally." That is Kim specifically saying 2014, might I add. And knowing the Kesha allegations come out at the end of 2014 and that she met and started working with Aaron around 2013, we can probably assume we're talking early 2014 for Kim's official signing. When Kim mentions BMG in this quote, she's referring to a German publisher who sold their publishing catalogue to Universal Music in 2007, meaning that the two are the same thing. Her signing to BMG is her signing to Prescription Songs. This is because there are a lot of complicated subdivisions under this label umbrella. At the very peak of the pyramid is Universal Music, who are the overlord of Kim's current record label, Republic Records, as well as Dr. Luke's personal record label, Amigo Records, which definitely includes Prescription Publishing, his publishing division. I'm so sorry, this is so complicated. But it's all Universal, all the way down. Universal owns so much more than you would imagine. So by this point, Kim is in a publishing deal, meaning that the mechanical rights of her songwriting and creation of songs is dealt with by Prescription Songs, Dr. Luke's publishing label. In the future, if she signs any other deals related to publishing or just the performance rights and her releasing as an artist, this means she would have separate deals. However, many contracts limit signing with different companies for both. A typical publishing deal shouldn't interfere with your traditional record label deal, but the fact that Dr. Luke is associated with Universal for all of it means that there would be financial and commercial reasons not to sign with separate labels for both publishing and mechanical reasons, even though they should be separate or could be separate. One other thing I think it's important to note about her publishing deal is that pre-2025, almost every single Kim Petras song had a Dr. Luke credit, excluding her features and her current releases off her upcoming album Detour, plus a couple of tracks off Feed the Beast. But across the board, nearly every single song has a Dr. Luke credit, which honestly is a little bit suspicious, as Kim has talked extensively about being a very collaborative artist, and it would be highly unusual for an artist's entire discography, especially one as large as Kim's, to actually have been worked on with the same person every single time. More on that later. So now it's 2014 and Kim actually has a job and is allowed to legally be in the US. She's making money, she's able to actually have a home, she has connections. Prescription Songs has given her safety in America. Nonetheless, she continues to look for her own record label to release music as her own artist beyond writing for others. During this search for a record label, Kim has talked about how many labels treated her with overt transphobia. They would cite religious reasons for not being able to sign her in the US, or suggest fetishistic promotional materials that emphasized her being trans above the quality of her music, meaning she did not want to sign with them. This is something she's talked about to Billboard magazine and Metro UK. So after several years of finding no luck signing to a label that actually believed in her as an artist beyond her just being the trans woman of pop, Kim ends up releasing independently on her own imprint, Bunhead Records, which for all intents and purposes is just a way to say Kim Petras, but sound more fancy, meaning at this point she owns and is in control of her masters and her own public image. However, her songwriting is still dealt with by Prescription Songs, meaning Dr. Luke is taking a cut and he's involved in the production every time. We don't know the details of that contract, but that seems to be what the evidence we have adds up to. This takes us to Era 1, where we all fell in love with the bunhead girl that is Kim Petras. Era 1 is also known as the Neon Era or the Bunhead Era. Era 1 refers to the 11 singles released across 2017 to 2019 with the neon bunhead logo as their single cover art. This introduces the whole bunhead aesthetic for Kim. She always has this one-sided bun hairstyle going on, as well as her famous "whoop-ah" tagline, which was originally used in If You Think About Me as the hook and is now essentially her producer tag. Era 1 has a hyperpop and dance pop sound that's quite innovative for the time, starting with some of still her biggest singles to date, I Don't Want It At All and Heart to Break. Notably, Era 1 was also compiled by Republic again several years later as a compilation album called The Summer I Couldn't Do Better. This is because when Kim Petras ends up signing to Republic Records later down the line, they got her song Can't Do Better in the film The Summer I Turned Pretty. It gained some virality as a result, and then Republic was like, we're gonna try and make an album out of the old stuff because we own that now. So it's just a bit cringe. No one calls it The Summer I Couldn't Do Better, even though Republic tried to make that happen. Era 1 also saw Kim have an increasing involvement with the hyperpop community and become a real LA socialite. She was friends with Paris Hilton, who appeared in her I Don't Want It At All music video. She became close friends with Charlie XCX after their collaborations Unlock It and Click, and she also worked on multiple songs with the infamous hyperpop and PC music legend Sophie, including their released song 123 Days Up, which was part of Era 1, and their posthumous 2024 release Reason Why, which was in the vault for many years until after Sophie's passing, when her family released a compilation album of her remaining work. I find the Charlie XCX connection particularly notable because Charlie is quite good friends with Kesha also, and Charlie mocked Dr. Luke on her song Sucker from 2014, where she deliberately made fun of label executives and producers talking down to her and sarcastically featured the lyric, "Luke loves your stuff." Essentially, the core of this time for Kim's career is that she is building a cult classic following, particularly with the LGBT community. But as she begins succeeding, the public begins to question Luke's involvement. The first time Kim is publicly asked about Dr. Luke's involvement in her work is by NME in April 2018. She says, "I would like my fans to know I would not work with someone who I believe to be an abuser of women." This is Kim's only direct comment on the Luke situation at this time, early in her English journey and one of her first major public interviews. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna defend that. That comment looks really bad. She essentially is dismissing the fact that Kesha went through what she did with Luke. It sounds like Kim is saying none of that happened. The first wave of controversy over this was minor, but it rose up again when Kim was chosen for Troye Sivan's Bloom tour as one of the support acts. In June 2018, she had to issue an apology on Twitter, saying, "Whilst I've been open and honest about my positive experience with Dr. Luke, that does not negate or dismiss the experience of others or suggest that multiple experiences cannot exist at once. I do want to express my sympathy for any and all abuse victims." Which is basically for PR, because she just wanted the opening slot. Like, let me be real, I don't think this is okay. This is such a shit thing to say. All of it. It's so shit. But in saying that, I don't want to think that people can't grow and change, and I do think we go on to see growth from Kim, so stick around. In fact, the following year, when Kim did an interview for Genius in 2019, all they managed to get out of her was her saying, "Yes, he signed me. It's like that." He signed me, it's like that. Kinda sounds like someone who is obviously under an NDA because she's signed with someone who is literally a major public figure for legal issues that she can't talk about. Obviously. Like, the things she'd said previously was so bad and not okay. But I do think way too many people acted like Kim could just openly share her thoughts on the situation. Any sort of public response Kim could give on this level of legal conflict would obviously have to be extremely PR heavy, and her business and management and everyone would have to think excessively about how she's going to word this, because there's really no way to deal with it well. I just think too few people consider the legal ramifications of her speaking out at all. It seems obvious to me that being under a contract with Luke would mean you couldn't share these things for risk of going to court yourself or losing your record deal. Next up on Kim's release schedule, though, is 2018's Turn Off the Light, where she furthers her cult following because gay people love a Halloween album, and this is the Halloween album. It really disrupts the Era 1 rollout. The whole vibe is a bit thrown off, and she's using like edited Era 1 pictures, making her look like a zombie to release Turn Off the Light, but nonetheless, we were ready to get spooky, it didn't matter. Turn Off the Light Volume 1 comes out as an EP in 2018, and then it is updated in October the following year with Volume 2, adding way more songs, including an Elvira collab, and this makes it an album-length mixtape, which also receives vinyl pressings. Side note, I have one of the vinyl, it literally glows in the dark, it's so dope. Ever since then, because Kim made the mistake of making this essentially a yearly release rollout, fans have been begging and begging for Turn Off the Light Volume 3, which has never really come. Technically, in 2020, she did re-release it again, adding the single Party Till I Die, but that was just one song, so it's not considered like a Volume 3 officially. This album is interesting because it mixes fully fledged lyrical songs on the themes of like murder and sex and fear with spooky instrumentals. There's a lot of just club music where Kim's not actually singing over a beat, she's just got a beat going that she clearly loves, giving the record a sort of non-stop party feeling when you listen in order. Turn Off the Light also introduces the concept of Kim playing a character, which she does in the future for several releases. She often is acting a part as opposed to presenting herself as the personal, real Kim Petras. No, this time around she's a spooky monster creature and she's gonna have sex with you in a dungeon and kill you. And by this point we've established Kim is a quick to release artist. She makes a lot of music and she wants it out constantly. The flow never ends. Because by the start of 2019, in February she puts out the final 3 singles from Era 1 and then immediately leads into her next era, which will be Clarity. When Clarity initially releases, it is touted as Kim Petras' upcoming debut album. The rollout starts in April with the single Broken, introducing a trap and R&B infused sound which is a little darker for Kim, also mixing with her traditional sound of synth pop and largely focusing on the theme of heartbreak as she'd been through a very intense breakup behind the scenes. The entire project released as weekly singles over 3 months starting from June 2019, which was quite an unusual strategy, as by the time the album came out we'd essentially heard everything. As a result, it commercially underperforms, and Kim and her team start walking it back from being a debut album to describing it as a mixtape. This begins the long-running joke that every single time Kim puts out an album, it's her debut album, as by this point we've already had 3 album-length releases, in Era 1 being 11 singles, Turn Off the Light being a full album just spooky themed, so I guess it doesn't count, and Clarity being an album that we're now calling a mixtape. And by this point, we've also got an emerging pattern of Kim and her team throwing songs at the wall, hoping something will be a hit, and as soon as it doesn't, instantly take off, they're on to the next thing. There's no focus on release strategy or giving the songs the attention they deserve after they've been made. Clarity also brings Kim's first US tour as she does 24 dates across the country on the Broken tour, leading us into the dreaded 2020, the worst year for everybody, and Kim's career is certainly derailed, like all of ours, by the you-know-what. Kim puts out the single Reminds Me as an intentional one-off on Valentine's Day, as like an anti-Valentine's Day song because it's really a breakup track, which is notable because the Kid Laroi releases a cover of it later that year with Juice WRLD posthumously. 2020 basically brings Kim putting out a bunch of singles again, hoping something will stick again, including Broken Glass with Cargo, which gains some chart success, and Malibu in May 2020, which is a fan favourite. It brings colour and joy back after her sadder heartbreak era, and kind of initiates this tropical, fun, beachy energy. So we all start feeling like Kim's about to go into a new album rollout led by Malibu, about the summer and getting outside and partying, but also then we all go into lockdown. Kim starts doing some quarantine fan live streams and she teases the unreleased song Tropical, so the anticipation is building, but the album actually never comes. Instead, we later learn that Kim spends her time quarantining with friends like Aaron Joseph, Vaughn Oliver, and Alex Chapman. It is during this time that they make Problématique, which is perhaps Kim's most infamous album in the fandom, and one that we will certainly be talking about more soon. But what we have to get into first is the Amigo Records signing. It's 2021. Up until this point, Kim has been an independent releasing artist under Bunhead Records, her own imprint. However, of course, she has been signed to Prescription Songs for publishing and songwriting the entire time. They've been dealing with her mechanical royalties, but they have not been dealing with her as a releasing artist. In August 2021, news breaks that Kim Petras has just signed to Dr. Luke's Republic Records imprint, Amigo Records. This means Universal is up here, they own Republic Records, and Republic Records owns Amigo Records, which is Dr. Luke's label, his personal label, as a subdivision of Universal and Republic. This does not look good for Kim, because we can certainly argue that she probably signed to Prescription Songs before the allegations from Kesha came out. We don't really know, the timeline is murky, but it seems that way. Signing to Dr. Luke in August 2021, there's no way she can deny what we all know. The allegations have been out for a long time, she's made some dodgy comments on the matter, and now she is officially signing to Dr. Luke's label, and seemingly picking a clear side. I do want to add though, we should consider this as the middle of COVID, where artists had almost no revenue streams as live performance was gone. And I do think in general, people really overestimate how much money musicians are making just because they're famous. Kim may be decently well known, especially in the gay community, but by no means is she rich. And Kim, if you're watching this, that's not me being shady, I'm just being so for real. We don't make any money. Even the top artists, there's so few people making any real money. So much of the Hollywood lifestyle is an illusion. The other aspect of signing to Amigo Records that we should consider is that Kim's publishing deal with Dr. Luke under Prescription Songs does likely limit the benefits of signing outside of the whole Universal and Luke chain. There will be financial limitations. If she signs elsewhere, someone else will be taking a cut, limiting the revenue further. And again, she's talked extensively about how other labels didn't want her because she was trans, or she couldn't trust them because they treated it like it was so strange and fetishistic. Regardless of what we think of her decision, that's the decision she makes in August 2021, right before releasing her debut major label single in August 2021, Future Starts Now. She teases it excessively with croissant and macaroon emojis, French and German captions and lyric teasers, changes her little woo-ah tagline to we are, and describes her upcoming album, which Future Starts Now is off, as sexy and inspired by her upbringing with Europop growing up in Germany. This whole vibe is my favorite for Kim. It's so unique, it's so her, it really highlights how she did grow up outside of America and all of the rave and techno influences in her work. It's campy but not excessively so, and it suits her voice and the topics she wants to discuss. Now that Kim is signed to Republic Records, we see immediate major label benefits that make us all think as fans she's about to blow up. For example, Kim performs at the VMAs, she features on multiple soundtracks including the aforementioned The Summer I Turned Pretty and American Horror Story, and her song Malibu makes it to Just Dance. However, the single Future Starts Now, which Republic seem to be putting a lot of money behind, underperforms and doesn't make any major chart debut. Around this time, Kim makes it to the EMAs and is clearly directed to start throwing new songs at the wall again because she performs unreleased songs, Coconuts and Hit It From the Back. Coconuts seemed quite popular, so they release it in December 2021. Coconuts then receives some virality because it is outlandishly sexual, referring to her boobs as her two coconuts. It's funny, okay? It's funny. It's a bit different for her at the time, but little did we know this was about to become her whole shtick because Republic thought this was a reason to essentially pigeonhole her as the campy sex girl. And although we're led to believe Coconuts, as well as the aforementioned Hit It From the Back, will be from this Europop album Kim keeps teasing, the rollout is confusingly disrupted that Valentine's Day by a random EP called Slut Pop. Oh my god, Slut Pop, the woman you are. It's February 2022. And we have just received the strangest, most bizarre and exciting Kim Petras drop yet. Some people hate it, some people love it, it's super polarizing. I'm into it. Slut Pop opts for a non-stop party mix style across its 7 tracks. It is extremely explicit and intentionally vulgar electropop, which gains immense virality and a cult fan base. These songs are filthy, they are ridiculous, they are equal parts doing a bit and taking themselves super seriously, and people love it or hate it. There is absolutely no in between. However, all of the goodwill that Slut Pop generates from new Kim Petras fans is immediately criticized on the opposite end for the effect that an alleged rapist is producing every single song on the sex-positive EP. Because yes, this is the work of Dr. Luke. In particular, there's a lyric referencing Lady Gaga on the song Throat Goat, which people took quite offensively as Lady Gaga has publicly discussed being a victim of SA herself. The EP is also criticised for ripping off the work of Aisha Erotica, a cult classic queer artist online, and Aisha Erotica's proteges, Slater and Chase Icon. More on this later. Interestingly, we still are all expecting the Europop album to come out soon, as Kim hasn't stopped teasing it. The Slut Pop teaser promotional art mentions on the side a date of 25th of March for Hit It From the Back, suggesting that the song is going to come out that day, but that date comes and goes and nothing happens. She then performs at Coachella around this time and performs the unreleased songs from that Europop album, Detour and Revelations, but no release of anything comes. Then fans realise Problématique, the theorized name for this Europop album, is in development hell. In April 2022, Kim posts to her Instagram story and then within a few hours deletes this. I don't know what's gonna happen next. Please don't be cruel. I've written 3 albums worth of songs. I've cried my eyes out for months. I try not to give up. The following day, she posts to her Instagram story again and says, sorry for being an alarmist earlier. I just want my album out as much as you, and I hear you and I'm super focused on it. Idiot girl shit. I cry about shoes being stunning and Blackpink documentaries and the stupidest shit. That is an insane walk back. And you know who it reminds me of? Doja Cat. Doja Cat is extremely relevant to this conversation. Doja Cat is another artist who has been signed to Amigo Records with Dr. Luke. However, she signed in 2014, confirmed, as a teenager before the allegations came out, so many people give her much more slack. Around the release of her album Planet Her, when asked about her association with Dr. Luke, Doja Cat said, I haven't worked with him in a very long time. There's shit that he's credited for where I'm like, I don't know if you did anything on that. Then, literally the next day, she went back to that interviewer and claimed she had no first-hand knowledge of any songs credited incorrectly, which is so clearly a PR walkback that her label and her team have forced her to go back and correct because she said something wrong against her contract with Dr. Luke. Are we seeing a pattern here? Like, it is so clear to me from this point that Kim is suffering under her contract with this man, that this man has issues and makes people claim he's doing more than he is and constantly stay tied to him against their will. Why is Kim saying that she is trying not to give up and that her career is in total jeopardy, and the next day being like, it doesn't matter, just joking? She wasn't joking, bitch. So during 2022, we've all been waiting on Problématique, but Kim behind the scenes is realizing it may never come out, so she actually also makes an entire other album behind the scenes called Candy, an 80s synth pop album which is still unreleased. In the documentary The Lead Up, which covers Kim's Coachella set, there is a shot of her revealing the Candy track list. Candy is often conflated as the album that Malibu as a single was meant for, but they are actually different and they're about 2 years apart in creation. We can only assume that the Malibu album was scrapped for COVID and she wanted to put out Problématique more anyway. So Kim is hustling. She's made yet another album secretly because the label is still halting her progress and not allowing her to put out what she truly wants, which is Problématique. Then in August 2022, about a year after the rollout for Problématique began, the entire album leaks online. Kim then publicly confirms the album has been scrapped and encourages her fans to listen to the leaks, saying at her pre-show interview for Outside Lands Festival, I wrote them for you. She confirms that the rumoured title Problématique was accurate. That title clearly pokes fun at her problematic fame and the Dr. Luke situation, but the song itself doesn't actually address the Luke situation whatsoever. It just makes a bit about how Kim is so beautiful and cool because she's problematique, is like a European version of saying problematic. I can see how people have issues with that and take it as offensive, but on the other hand, I do enjoy how she is spinning something used against her and making it positive, especially when, at this point, I personally think her problematic decisions were very, very little to do with her. Then comes Unholy. We've all heard this one. We all know Unholy. Unholy is a single that Kim Petras featured on in 2022 with Sam Smith. It quickly goes viral for thirst traps on TikToks, and it features samples, notably, from the producer Sophie's Splice Packs. Remember, Sophie is one of the icons from the hyperpop community, and her production heavily influences modern pop. It was so ahead of its time, it's gorgeous, I love Sophie very much, and I wish her and Kim had gotten to work together more. Unholy also opts for this long-standing tradition of many pop stars before Kim and Sam, toying with satanic imagery, especially trans and queer artists. Think Madonna, think Lil Nas X, think the way that conservative people view gay people and opting for, instead of pushing away this idea that we're hellish and satanic, celebrating it and becoming one with the hellish imagery. Unholy takes off so much that it wins Best Pop Duo/Group Performance at the Grammys in February 2023, making Kim the first openly trans woman to win a Grammy, and also making Sam and Kim the first non-binary and trans artists respectively to top the Billboard Hot 100. What the label takes from this, as well as the niche cult success of slut pop before it, is that Blasphemy and sex stereotypes should be Kim Petras' brand. And in September 2022, they put out maybe one of her weakest singles ever, If Jesus Was a Rock Star. If Jesus Was a Rock Star is largely completely forgotten in the fandom, but we have to talk about it. It's not very good. That's the reality of it. I'm sorry, Kim. I really love you, but it's not very good. If Jesus Was a Rock Star is a coincidental collaboration with Max Martin, who is another one of the pop music world's most infamous producers. He worked with Britney Spears, Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift. He is an absolute hitmaker, and there is no denying his craft is impeccable. And he doesn't have any assault allegations against him, so shout out Max Martin. This could have been an amazing collab. I'm not really sure why it resulted in something so mediocre. But the song is about disconnect from religion as a queer person, and Kim wishing that the world of spirituality didn't reject her lifestyle. The song makes no noise, as it is underwhelming and outdated. However, I will say the actual acoustic version is quite nice and really shows off her voice. Around this time again, Kim is facing another wave of Dr. Luke criticism, so she actually tweets. She speaks up on the matter for the first time since 2019. On November 27th, 2022, Kim tweets, 5 million people work with him. Why y'all only coming at me? I have nothing to say or be ashamed of. Go away. The other artists she refers to, of course, are people like Nicki Minaj, Doja Cat, Katy Perry, Saweetie, Neo. She is completely right that so many other massively successful artists, much bigger than her, are still continuously working with Dr. Luke after the allegations, and very few people are speaking up on it, but it's one of the main comments made about Kim when she comes up. Everyone is in a different situation, of course, and I think most of those artists have plausible deniability that they've been associated with Luke since beforehand, but like Katy Perry, for example, girl, she's worked with many producers other than Luke. She has so many people to pick from. She has no reason to choose him. Nicki Minaj, for instance, I'm going to assume that she's intentionally picking him because we know she has no issue with sexual assault and abusers. And Nicki Minaj, of course, she's about to become very relevant to the convo again because 2023, Kim and her label are going to pivot again. In January 2023, the official rollout for Kim Petras' final major label debut album, and the one that everyone will actually call her debut album despite the fact we're sort of 4 albums in at this point, begins. We get the song Brr, which is a great song. It's a dark hyperpop sound which again uses Sophie's splice packs, so the label has learnt again that Unholy was sexy, it was dark, it was twisting religious imagery, and people liked the hyperpop elements going on in that song. Brr does okay as more of a promotional single to build hype, and then the lead single for the album Alone, featuring Nicki Minaj, comes out in April 2023. Alone samples the 90s classic Better Off Alone by Alice DJ, and it charts in 5 countries, which means the album is seemingly approved to roll out officially from this point. Feed the Beast, Kim Petras' debut album under a major label, is finally released in June 2023. Feed the Beast opts for medieval imagery and themes of sex, hedonism, and masochistic love. It displays Kim as this beautiful sexual being who is simultaneously the most gorgeous creature you've ever seen and also a beast and a monster. I love that title, and I love the song that the album is named after because it metaphorically refers to how label executives have told Kim to feed the beast of the music machine. This is how she was encouraged to create so many albums worth of content despite how often they were rejected. And I also think it's a really cool play on how people treat trans people as other in society. Kim is the beast, and yet she's so gorgeous and talented, and this record is so impressive. She is luring you in like a siren. And if her beauty and her talent causes you to question what is really beastly, then that is the ultimate message of the record and who she is as an artist. However, Feed the Beast, the songs individually are all quite strong. I quite enjoy this album as like a playlist type of vibe. But the way that it is track listed is a mess because it is essentially chaotically throwing songs from all of these other scratch projects at the wall and trying to put them together. Feed the Beast features multiple songs from the Problématique sessions around 2020-2021, including Sex Talk, Hit It From The Back, which is finally out after being performed at the EMAs several years prior, Revelations, and the single Coconuts, which is now 2 years old at this point. Also, Unholy with Sam Smith is tacked on as a bonus track, and again redirects to that darker, devilish medieval imagery that the whole album's aesthetic is about, but doesn't actually connect to many songs on the album in a meaningful way. Basically, Feed the Beast is all good songs, like, oh my god, we got 1,000 Pieces and Minute on this record, which are some of Kim's best songs ever. But there's no flow, there's no order, there's no cohesion that creates a meaningful overall sound, making it kind of a weak album. Nonetheless, it does result in Kim's first world tour, playing arenas and theatres. And this is a really cool tour, the Feed the Beast World Tour. I so wish I could have gone. I love the aesthetics, and I love the way they laid the set list out. The set lists drastically differ between American and European legs because Kim was trying to shed a light on all of her different eras so far in her career. Each leg of the tour incorporated different characters and eras for Kim. But hey, plot twist. We're about to deal with the Kim Petras plot twist of the century because, for some reason, Problématique is about to release. Feed the Beast has just come out, June 2023, and then in August 2023, Kim starts teasing that the scrapped, infamous, leaked record Problématique might actually get an official release. She performs the song Claws from Feed the Beast as an acoustic session, and in this video there are close-ups on the album titled Problématique down the side of her jeans, as well as a bleeding ear and her nail which says, "Help me." Interesting. We're talking about the album that she has famously discussed being withheld from release, and she's saying, "Help me." Problématique is randomly released on a Monday, which is very against industry standard. If you want anything to do well, it's coming out on a Friday. So her label lets her put it out on a Monday. They try to bury it. They don't promote it at all. But it doesn't really matter because the fans have gotten what they wanted all this time. There's a new photo shoot, a new album cover compared to the leaked version, and the tracklist is shortened as it's missing a couple of the leaked songs and obviously the songs that were put on Feed the Beast instead. But at the end of the day, Problématique is finally out. Kim also performs it on tour. And then, hey, you know what? Let's make another pivot, they said, because at this point, Republic clearly has absolutely no idea what to do with Kim Petras as an artist. So, February 2024, Valentine's Day, they say, let's do this shit again. We get the sequel to Slut Pop Miami. Slut Pop Miami is house music, bright neon video game aesthetics inspired by Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and it references extremely explicit material like Madonna's sex book on the Slut Pop Miami website. It's quite a lot. They go even further in the visuals than they did for the Slut Pop the first time around. But also the music itself is definitely less fleshed out than the original. Slut Pop Miami has 12 songs instead of 7, but they're shorter, they're simpler, and they're much more repetitive, and you can just hear that the production has less passion behind it. And honestly, even the fans didn't particularly connect with this. If they liked Slut Pop the first time round, they liked Slut Pop Miami less because it just didn't have the same energy. You could tell it was an intentional rehash and no one's heart was really in it. However, it does cause Aisha Erotica to absolutely blow up on Twitter because fans ask her for comment. As I mentioned when I originally talked about Slut Pop, the concept of super explicit electropop, hyperpop music was largely pioneered by Aisha Erotica as well as artists she was producing and writing with. And when Slut Pop Miami comes out, essentially ripping her off the second time around, she loses her mind publicly. She says some horrific thing. If you weren't already questioning Aisha Erotica on a different note for different reasons, these might make you question her, I say, with the Aisha pic in the background, because it's just fierce, isn't it? Unrelated to her as a person. Aisha claims that Kim's label asked her to sign on with them to work with Kim Petras. She claims that she said no because Kim was talking shit about their mutual friend Slater, who, notably, Kim and Slater have also been publicly compared repeatedly throughout the years and have also had an on and off friendship. Aisha then calls Kim out directly for working with Dr. Luke, as well as makes multiple hateful and graphic transphobic comments about Kim's transitioning at a young age, which is interesting because Aisha herself is a trans woman. In the following days, Aisha apologizes for her transphobia, but honestly the damage has been done. There's no way in hell I'm reading these comments out because they're honestly despicable. I can't believe she said this, and to me it reeks of jealousy, I'll be honest. Even though there is a ring of truth to what Aisha is saying about the Dr. Luke material and the fact that Slut Pop Miami and Slut Pop both rip off her work, this is not okay. In any circumstance, this behavior is so not okay. And to be honest, I'm only mentioning Aisha's crash out because I just think it's kind of interesting and relevant to the overall layout of Kim's career because she's causing controversy everywhere she goes. Slut Pop Miami is mid. And this takes us to 2023-2024 overall, where Kim is kind of in her collab bag. She features on Katy Perry's Gorgeous, City Girls' Flashy, David Guetta When We Were Young, James Hype Drums, and the Chainsmokers Don't Lie. Further evidence that Kim is a socialite and a collaborator. She loves to work with other people. And she loves to experiment with new sounds. She's increasingly getting into more of this club and EDM rave style sound through these collaborations. This all, of course, takes us to Detour, the 2025 beginning Kim Petras era of her next album, which starts in June with the release of Polo, a much more abrasive, experimental hyperpop and hip-hop track. It's followed by Freak It in July, which is kind of a 2010s EDM banger, think Zed and Lady Gaga. Both songs have surface level themes of partying and high fashion, but they hide deeper topics about the music industry and the schemes within it. Kim told People magazine in 2025, "I feel like the songs that are out right now really were designed to throw everyone off, especially Polo. A lot of people are just like, oh, it's such a stupid song about a shirt. And it's really about the Beverly Hills Polo Lounge, where deals in the music industry are being made. I'm pretty revealing on that one. So yeah, all the songs are a little, I think, deeper than they're being given credit for, but that's fine." Since the beginning of the Detour rollout, starting with Polo last June, Kim has been working with Margot XS and the Frost Children, a sibling producer duo who make EDM, glitchcore, and hyperpop. And since the release of Polo, she has not been credited on any songs with Dr. Luke. At all. Later in 2025, Kim and the Frost Children released their collaboration Radio as a single from the Frost Children's album Sister. Then the third song to be released from Detour, I Like Your Look, gains brief online virality in October/November. Around this time, a Universal newsletter to fans teases that the album is going to be released in November. At this time, both Freak It and I Like Your Look gain music videos from Kim, which is quite rare in her career, which she says are both self-funded. The Freak It music video is also posted exclusively to social media in November. It seems that here, Kim has found a loophole to release her art without label approval by posting exclusively to social media and not on official services like Spotify or Apple Music. This little loophole of Instagram and TikTok music videos and singles is like circumventing the label ruling. In November, Kim hosts a listening party in Paris on the 24th for her fans to listen to the album, which is completed. And she also performs DJ sets which feature several unreleased songs and posts some demos to Tumblr. The song Bozo, which Kim performs live, is theorized to be about Dr. Luke. It's a clubby track quite transparently about Hollywood types and features the lyrics, "See you later, doing favors in the escalator," and "You wear your jeans low, Fred Perry polo, your beats are so-so, you fucking bozo." So she's kind of mocking the producer archetype and the way they dress, and they think that they're so cool, as well as the Hollywood casting couch archetype. But at the same time, the rest of the song celebrates this imagery and says, "I don't know why I like your style," and admits she's into it and attracted to this dangerous level of glam and sex and allure. By the end of 2025, we have 3 official singles and a title confirmed in the name Detour, knowing that there's an album coming out, but we have no release date, which is kind of unusual 6 months into a rollout for a major artist. And in January 2026, Kim drops an absolute bomb on Twitter. Kim said online, "My album has been done for 6 months, but my record label has refused to give me a release date or pay my collaborators for the work they've done. I've also filmed and self-funded a music video over 2 months ago for my next single that they also wouldn't give me a release date for. I'm tired of having no control over my life or my career. I want to continue to self-fund and self-curate my own music. This is why I have formally requested to be dropped by Republic Records. I won a Grammy 2 years ago. The music is tea. Still no support. If it's not a TikTok trend or 80s revival queer-baiting shit, these labels have no interest in supporting. My fans have waited long enough. I love you guys. I'm dropping Detour regardless." Rumors in Los Angeles have circulated for literal years that Kim does not like Luke and does not want to work with him. Now, this is the kind of thing that I don't have hard proof for because it's all hearsay spread in social circles and online. But you would not believe the amount of posts and comments, often deleted, you can find or could find, from industry insiders and Kim's alleged friends posting anonymously online, claiming that her label punishes her by blocking releases when she refuses to work with Luke, and that she's easily swayed and has been largely pushed into this path of working with Amigo Records. People have been very cruel to her and dismissive of this as a concept, but I would like to note this literally happened to Kesha with her 2017 album Rainbow. After her 2012 album came out, Kesha then of course went public in 2014 with the Dr. Luke allegations, and then she wasn't allowed to release an album for the following 5 years, which is a massive release gap, especially for an artist of Kesha's caliber at that time. Kesha has alleged that she was blocked from releasing as punishment for her issues with Dr. Luke. So it should come as no surprise that the same thing could have plausibly happened to Kim Petras, especially how little she seems to have been working with him, given that his production and songwriting credits with her have heavily diminished over the past couple of years. Now, after Kim tweeted this and asked for Republic to drop her, Kesha publicly came out and supported Kim. She tweeted, "I spent many years fighting for the rights to myself. Watching another woman realize that the golden cage is still a cage isn't a victory. It's a tragedy we have to stop repeating. Freedom isn't a privilege, it's a birthright. I'm sorry, Kim." Other artists, including Grimes, also backed her up, which, yeah, Grimes, do you want her on your side? I don't know, but a broken clock strikes right twice a day. Following this series of tweets in early February this year, Kim announced that she was self-releasing an EP off streaming services through her social media, once again clarifying that there is clearly a loophole in her contract that allows her to post songs and music videos except if they're on like official streaming. This EP she referred to as pre-tour, 4 songs not on the upcoming Detour album, which would come out whether or not it was through the label or through her independently, but existed still within that same Detour sonic space as a way to continue feeding the fans while they wait for the album that she is so clearly trying to figure out how to get out there legally. The first song from the collection is one of my favorite Kim songs of all time. It's called Pop Sound, and its lyrics refer to Kim as a product, but all she wants to do is release music and enjoy it and celebrate outside of the label machine. Made for the masses, made for the money, made for the thrill, factory girl. It's an illusion, it's an oasis. Shoot at the ground just for no reason. Make me a boy, make me a girl. Make me your weapon, your Smith & Wesson. Make me a killer, make me a classic. Factory girl made out of plastic. That's so clearly describing her as a manufactured label product and how she struggles within the confines of how the traditional music industry scene forces her to behave in the public eye when all she wants to do is make music and be herself, which she highlights in the bridge. All week I tweak for your sound, both comparing how she is craving the hit of music as an addiction and something she constantly seeks for joy and pleasure, and also saying that she tweaks all week. She's forever editing her sound for label satisfaction that never comes. Pop Sound was followed by Mr. Producer, a collaboration with BC Kingdom, which mocks the producer-artist relationship in a really dark and twisted way. Kim in this song is playing a weak Hollywood ingenue looking for fame at any cost. She sings, "Here comes the starlet, I tripped and fell right in your arms, I'm the one." The chorus explores the idea of acting hot on tape to have your art approved, again using that casting couch trope of drugs and sexual abuse for celebrity status. And in my opinion, you could definitely take this as a reading on her potential relationship with Dr. Luke, although I don't want to make assumptions on how abusive that relationship became independently. That's their private world, and Kim hasn't shared anything in detail about that. The next single, Cha Cha, has vague lyrics about the American nuclear family contrasted against verses about Kim's own personal failings. And I think a notable line is she sings, "I took the easy way out, I'll never get out of bed, put the soap in my mouth," which, again, it's up for interpretation, but I totally think if you read into it, could be her saying she regrets taking the easy way out and signing with Luke's label because it was seemingly her only option at the time, but now she regrets that decision. She'll never get out of bed. She's upset and depressed, and the consequences of the label turning on her are also a factor. Now all of Pre-Tour is released on Kim's socials, so you can hear all of those singles and get an idea of what Detour is expected to be if we ever actually get to hear it, which is definitely still Kim's wish. So how do we conclude this extremely long-winded career history? It's so apparent that Kim has been extremely mismanaged and that there's so many different people pulling and pushing at what they want her to be. She has no control over her image. She has no control over the work and the direction of her sound. And yet, despite the fact there's a whole team of people working behind her and that Kim Petras is not a person, but an entire group of industry executives, she's the only person who ever has to take blame and take fault and deal with the public consequences, because to the public, Kim Petras is one person. That is the point of music and media and how we publicize artists. But I want to conclude that blaming Kim Petras for all of this has always been hypocritical. First of all, these are not her actions. I'm not saying that it's okay for her to side with Dr. Luke after what he has allegedly done. But to pin everything on a woman for a man's actions, it is just so ridiculous. The manufactured outrage we have at Kim Petras for working with Dr. Luke, rather than actually attacking and going after Dr. Luke, who still has not faced any real legal consequence for what he did. I also do believe sincerely people can grow and change, and I get the impression that Kim has grown and changed and wouldn't stand by her initial comments and decisions on this topic. One bad decision should not forever justify Kim Petras' mistreatment, and it is so obvious now that she is also clearly a victim of his abuse, his industry mishandlings, and throughout her career has probably been through periods of time where she was not thinking clearly or behaving correctly as a result. Also, this entire time, we've never known the official timeline of Kim's signing with Dr. Luke. I have my theory that it was before the allegations, but everyone has always assumed it was post, and we actually don't have any hard evidence to the contrary, although the Fergie song and the songwriting crediting around 2013 would suggest otherwise. So why are we giving slack to artists like Doja Cat, who signed beforehand, before the allegations came out, but not Kim? She was broke, She was a trans woman living in an extremely transphobic America. She was an immigrant. English was her second language. She didn't even have a legal visa. I'm personally not going to judge someone so harshly for making difficult decisions at a time where their life was extremely, extremely difficult. Of course that was a hard call to make, but she needed a job, she needed safety, she needed structure to her life. We don't even know the extent of what she knew at the time she was signing initially. Plus, I want to say, Kim has a history of supporting LGBT charities, sex positivity and women's rights, and also Palestine. And given that those are all very liberal-leaning causes, I think it stands to reason that she would be on the side of actual abuse and assault survivors also. But at the end of the day, women are not to blame for men's actions. It's like making me think about the perfect victim complex idea, right? To bring up Amber Heard, for example, Amber Heard was so vilified in the media for how she treated Johnny Depp, despite the fact that he did equally and significantly worse things to her in the first place, and that would be considered reactive abuse. It's comparable because when women respond to men's horrific actions in similarly horrific ways, because they have been driven to excessive behavior because reasonable and good behavior doesn't qualify and doesn't make a change, then society turns on them and punishes them for their reaction instead of the man's action. I'm so over it. You're never going to get a perfect victim. No woman is completely innocent and has never done any wrong. And yet in no way does that justify the actions of the actual initial abusers. I think Kim has learnt the hard way through this signing and through her contract how sick the music industry can be. And realistically, this whole case is so much deeper than we will probably ever know because there are NDAs, there are legal bindings, meaning her comments have always and probably will continue to be limited and strained. To make an unbelievably long story short, I want you to give Kim Petras a chance. I want you to reconsider the perspective assigned to her for someone else's behavior at the end of the day. I'm not saying she deserves to be forgiven for every little thing she said and done. I don't think signing to Luke was ever a good idea, but we don't know what she knew. We probably never will know. And I don't think anyone deserves to be treated the way that she has, or Kesha has, or any woman in the music industry who's been manipulated in such a similar way, just because they've made a few bad decisions. No one deserves that mistreatment. I sincerely hope Detour gets to be released. I sincerely hope she's released from her label contract. And I sincerely hope that artists in the future can take her as another cautionary tale of how the music industry mistreats people with big dreams and talent. And they deserve so much better. And Kim and Kesha and all the women in this circumstance deserve to be treated much better. Let me know what you think down below. If you think that Detour's ever going to come out, if you think Kim is right or wrong or somewhere in between, which I think is the most logical way to look at it personally, and what your take is on her whole career and her eras. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on my other socials at Danica Bryant or Danica Bryant Music. I make music myself, as I've mentioned, and I'm on Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. And there will be more video essays coming soon on more random niche pop culture stuff that I personally like. I'm just gonna make what I want and hopefully you're on that vibe. See you later, all my bunheads. It's been a ride.